Okay, so we're going to dive straight into conversation. Welcome again if you just tuned in. This is Joy 99.7 FM and you're listening to Home Affairs. My name is Enima Animado and yes, I'm sitting in for your regular host, Edem Knight Tay. Well, joining me in the studio are two gentlemen, the very same two gentlemen who were here last week when we started talking about this topic of emotional intelligence. We have David Edger, who is a life coach, and Yao Sumpa, who is so many things that this morning, I don't know. This morning, what are you, Yao?
And this morning, I'm the guy learning on emotional intelligence.
Okay, this morning he's the guy learning on emotional intelligence, but he's an author and a banker, among other things, like I said. Good morning and welcome again.
Good morning.
It's great to have you guys. Last week, we started the topic of emotional intelligence, and I keep on saying how much emotional intelligence has evolved in the past few years, and the fact that it's such an essential soft skill that we must learn at this point if you want to succeed both in life, in love, and with work. It's number 6 on the Future for Jobs list for the 10 most important skills that you will need to succeed for 2020. And so we're going to try and do as much justice as we can to this subject today. Now, today we're going to take it a step further and be much more practical in the application of emotional intelligence. We're going to give you some examples of how it applies. We're going to bring some day-to-day scenarios of how emotional intelligence can be intertwined into the tapestry of your life. We're also going to be talking about raising emotionally intelligent kids because we owe it to the next generation to pass on this knowledge that we have. Before we do all of that, I'm going to hand over to you guys. If both of you spoke about different things last week, the same thing, but there are a lot of differences. Okay. I'm going to give you 3 minutes each. If you can give us a quick recap of what we spoke about last week. So what emotional intelligence is, the range of emotions, what it serves to do, and that 3 minutes each, and then we'll move on in the conversation. So David?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
The quick getaways from last week is that emotions give themselves to sequence, and so there is a feeling component. Anytime we're talking about emotion, there's a certain level of it which is pure physiological, which is chemicals, but then it moves to a thought process, which is then you become conscious of what you're feeling, and then you think about it. You stay with your mind, which would affect your mood, and then consequently moves into the third phase, which is the action. It is also a fact that most people will jump from the pure physiological state to that state of action without giving themselves a place in the middle to think about what they are feeling. And so one of the things we said last week was that at any point in time, pause, reflect, and ask yourself, what am I feeling? We also, I quite remember making the point that emotions are the basic blocks for building our lives. So because in the flings of the moment, what we feel gives cause for what we build as a behavior pattern, and which consequently makes us. And I also quite remember saying that the motivations of human life is either a matter of survival, is a matter of somebody who is motivated by learning, or some feathering the nest, which is growth. And in all these emotions, we get varying emotions because either these base motivations in life are threatened, or we get emotions to further these basic instincts. We ended on the note by saying that emotional intelligence must drive us to 3 things, which is respectfulness, to engender engagement with one another, and to bring us to a place where we're more self-aware and we can develop ourselves. So I guess we'll take the conversations into a more practical, as it were, how do I, as a person, develop the consciousness of emotional intelligence, and how do I become better? How do I leverage it in my relationships? And so those were some, for me, salient takeaways from the conversations we had last week.
All right, thank you, Yao. David?
Yes, I would add that human beings are emotional bags. We are full of emotions, and basically they could be classified into 2 broad types: positive emotions and negative emotions. And I said often we don't have much problems with the positive emotions, but it's when it comes to the negative emotions that we have a lot of issues. Now, with the negative emotions, no matter which type, irrespective of the variations of them, they could be classified under 10 core emotions. And I mentioned that these 10 core emotions are anger, disappointment, discomfort, fear, frustration, guilt, hurt, inadequacy, loneliness, and overload. Now, anytime these emotions occur, there's a core message it brings to you, the person experiencing the emotion. So you need to identify the core emotion. And then when you do, there are two possible responses, ideally. Either the way you are perceiving the issues on, because emotions are subjective responses to how we process information or stimuli. Depending on the responses you give, you can either change how you are perceiving the stimuli or the procedure with which you are responding to the stimuli. So either of these could help restore you back to sanity anytime you encounter any of the negative emotions. But then, human beings, we have approximately 60,000 thoughts every day, so research says. So it means at any point in time, you are likely to be responding to one stimuli or feeling a kind of emotion or the other. So it's a continuous process that we need to deal with if we want to have a fulfilled life, and also, most importantly, have a good relationship with the people we interact with.
Right. There's a saying which stayed with me, and it says something like the best way to deal with stress is the ability to choose one thought over the other. And a lot of times we feel like when it comes to the way that we feel, especially with stress, with anger, we don't have the power to choose. But for me, from last week, and when we talked about this, the thing that really stood out to me is that with everything that we feel, we have the power to choose. So emotional intelligence at its core is really developing that skill to choose how we are going to feel at any point in time about anything, which then impacts the way that we relate with ourselves and to other people. Okay, so I'm going to come back to Yao and talk about something that is very interesting for me is dealing with our childhood issues. So let's have a bit of a personal conversation. Have you know how all of us have issues, and we know that the way that we are, the way that we love, the way that we relate to other people is dependent on how we were parented or depending on our childhood. How do we as adults grow out of that and come away from the blame of this is how I was raised, this is what happened to me?
Okay, so I will share personal stories, then probably leverage on it.
Go ahead.
I grew in a very small town in the Bronx. I was born in Agogo, which is Ashanti region, but I grew in Diayankwanta, which is a town some 20 minutes away from Sunyani. Average home, but I grew with a very stern father, a typical Presbyterian who beat the hell out of you, with hindsight, I think there were times I felt as a child that some of the things I had been through were unfair, but so most of the part of me where people know me as secluded and all to myself, most of it had grown where parents wanted you to read and nothing else. You don't go out to play, no one comes home to play with you, you just read and go to classes. Even my siblings growing up, some of them did not really get the best of me because almost always I was in my room. Now, the bit of it is that I grew with a certain sense of not having been loved fully by the people you so deserved love from. That's your father, But growing up, I realized that, and this came up in the university, where I realized that he had done everything as a man of very humble means to make sure that I did not become the norm in that small town, which is going wayward. And so he did what he knew best how to do, which is to make you disciplined. Now that does not come easy, because all your life you've thought of somebody who maltreated you. And now you wake up to the fact that he's done that in his best wisdom to bring you here. It doesn't rob the fact that all the years growing up you felt hurt, unloved, either rejected or just the social recluse. But then you need to, and I guess that's one of the big part of social emotional intelligence, which is to bring a certain self-awareness, And so you wake up and understand. So you wake up and you are aware of your own deficiencies. And that's one of the important building blocks to becoming socially, emotionally intelligent. Because now you understand what it is that you're self-aware. And so those of you who know me knows that I may not go for a party. I may not go for a social gathering, but I can have personal conversations, And so self-awareness is knowing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your emotional ranges are, what you do in your solitude. How do you even react to stress? And so that period of self-discovery is the first building block. Sometimes we all mask our past experiences in the fact that we do not come to a place where we recognize that our childhood may have bruised us. The challenges of life may have bruised us. But it's time to tear yourself apart and become aware of your own ranges. And so self-awareness and the fact that you get to know what it is that those childhood or growing up teenage years left you with, that's the first step in unwrapping yourself. So discover what's the hurt. Why do I feel like that? Why do I go through the things? What's the weakness? Am I trying to fit in? What exactly is, and those thought process with ourselves helps us come to the first place, which is self-awareness. Then you can self-manage yourself. Okay. Because until you're aware, you can move to the second stage of growing in becoming emotionally intelligent, which is self-management. Okay, so you become aware, then you can manage yourself through self-control, through adaptability. And so if your work demands that you're socially alive, you need to adapt. You don't give the excuse that I grew up in my own room. You need to adapt. Adaptation is a rule of evolution. And so whether you are new orientation, trainings, learning, I may have been fortunate by rationalizing the process, which has become beneficial. And we all need to learn, because sometimes knowledge is the single key to overcoming all the things and all the ranges of emotions,
Yeah.
And a certain positive outlook. So those are the first two blocks. Become self-aware by tearing apart the ranges of things you've been through. But move a step further and manage yourself. Then we can get to the place of how do I become socially aware? How do I become aware of other people's hurts and their own baggages? And how do I connect at a vulnerable and empathetic level? So,
okay.
So that's my initial thoughts.
Okay, David, I'm going to flip the question to you.
Yes. The first thing I'll say is you must first forgive. Forgive yourself. Forgive the other people. Understand that your emotions are subjective responses, really. So much depends on you, the individuals. So however you feel, or whichever way you think your behavior or makeup or temperament or what have you is, all of them are learned behaviors that can be unlearned. Now, you forgive those who have influenced you negatively. Be grateful to those who have influenced you positively. Forgive yourself for not having done something about it the way you should have. And then make a decision to want to do something positive about the situation. So the first point is to recognize that you can do something about it, and then making a decision to want to do something about it. Forgiving these two parties, yourself and the others, and then taking the necessary steps. So for instance, a lot of the things our parents did for us and to us were done in their best interests. They didn't mean harm per se, except that because generally our upbringing is said that we are not properly groomed. We do what we see others do. So often we repeat the mistakes of others. So they did what they thought was best for you. So forgive them. It's just because they didn't know, probably they were hurting you and so on and so on. But you cannot continue to hurt yourself by not forgiving and dealing with it. Yeah, so that's what I want to add.
So okay.
Yes.
A few weeks ago, a friend of mine and I had a sit-down session, which is something that we do with a few people. And it was on a series that we had titled, Who Am I? Okay. And I mean, as we spoke, a lot of the issues that came up, a lot of the issues that people had to do with how they were parented. Okay. So my mother was this, my father was this, my mother. I mean, and these were adults. You know, my mother doesn't love me, my father is this. And at the heart of it, it's just this pain of wanting to be accepted for who we are. There's something I realized when I became a parent. And when I became a parent, I forgave my parents for everything I thought they had done wrong.
Great.
Because I understood how much I loved my kids and how everything that I did was motivated by love. Now, love is expressed in so many different ways. So for me, I understood that my father's discipline was love.
The rod of correction.
Exactly. I understood that when my mother did something, it was love. I understood that when she shouted at me or when she yelled or when she got frustrated, it was love, because I have learned that love is expressed in different ways. And the reason why I'm really on this point is that the fundamental and the greatest gift you can give yourself through emotional intelligence is forgiving your parents for the things that you think they did wrong. If you can't get past that, it's difficult to become emotionally intelligent.
Certainly.
I mean, I get that it's a bit of a sweeping statement, but it's really just a practical statement, because at the core of all our pain as adults is that experience that we had when we were children. So this is what I would say. I agree with you, David. I would say, and yeah, I would say to our listeners this morning, make a conscious effort and forgive your parents, the people who raised you, your aunties, your uncles, whatever it was. Just understand that they were doing the best that they could with whatever it is that they knew.
Yeah.
They loved you the best way that they could. And you have a responsibility to yourself to let that tie go, because it ties you, you know, and it becomes an excuse for everything. I'm like this because I'm angry because my father has anger issues and I'm this. But you will never really move forward and you'll never really be who you were meant to be if you don't, at the very foundation of your life, let go of that resentment and that anger.
Yeah. Let me add something quickly. If you remember last week, I was making a point to say that sometimes we're all emotionally resistant because of certain pure thoughts of either insecurity. Now, when you're a child and you're under the control of somebody, you're fragile. Not only are you fragile, but you depend on somebody for your whole existence and even your thought process. And so not only are you not insecure, but you're powerless. You feel a sense of dread if you're not protected by those people. Yeah. And the worst of it is that to be a child and feel betrayed by the people you have a pure sense that your life depends on. And sometimes we don't think, but I remember things that happened to me in class. Well, I went to school a bit early. And so class 2, class 3, I remember those experiences, even class 1, just like yesterday. But sometimes we take for granted some of the things we make kids go through, you know, because we think that, they don't remember it or they don't have a certain emotional, they can't feel it. but we can all remember our childhood, you know. And so the fact that we take, and I guess the conversation is even into the future for those of us who are parenting today. You don't know who you're parenting. He could be the next whoever in the world.
Einstein.
You know, he could be that's what I'm saying, the next whoever. You know, so, but understand that what you're giving them in terms of how you're parenting them would have a great impact as to who they become.
Yes.
You know, some of the experiences they would have to take a lifetime to unlearn. You know, so the bigger part is understand that they are powerless to a large extent. And they, of course, a child always believes that the father has everything or the mother has everything. And that sense of insecurity must be given from the parents. Because if a child needs to fight for approval, understand that he remembers that. So he grows up and thinks that I need to do something. I need to do something in order to be loved. I think sometimes too, when we grow up, we get so hoodwinked with our childhood that we don't, because at a certain point, what the lawyers call dole in capax. Once you're past 12 years, you're responsible for even the crimes you commit. And so at a certain age, you need to wake up and say that they did all they could. Now it's my life. Can I seize it and make the difference with whatever baggage I've been given?
But personal responsibility is frightening.
But it is what adulthood is all about.
Yeah.
You know, you need to seize your life at a certain point and say that they meant well and they still mean well, but it's just my life. You know, I take control of it and I live my life as God and my best wit says I should. You
Right.
know? So that point is important because some of us are still hooked. Yes, it's painful, but those are tools for us to build our lives. Those are experiences that helps us tell our stories. And so yes, they are baggages, but transform them into something. Make them an energy to change something. Make it a reason to fight for something. And so we should all turn those hurts of our teenage and childhood into an energy to transform our lives and the lives of other people.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, yeah.
There's
David.
this popular analogy that seeks to drive home the negative consequences of not forgiving and dealing with it. It says that it's like drinking poison
and expecting it
your
to kill the
enemy
other person, yes.
So it's in your own
Interest,
interest,
yeah.
first and foremost.
It is. Yeah, I agree
You're-
with
you're
you.
doing
I was
that.
going to ask you, you have two children.
Yes, adorable ones.
Two adorable. Two adorable.
Daniela
children.
and Samuela.
Oh, good
Hi
morning,
to you.
Daniela
I
and
know you are
Samuela.
listening
Thank
in.
you for giving us daddy this morning. Parenting.
Yes.
There's a thought, or we as parents, I think we started off thinking that parenting is inherent. Do we need to learn how to parent?
Yes, a big yes. I think so.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what it means to parent, but I honestly think that I honestly think that it doesn't take the normal sequence of learning to parent. You know, I think you need to learn because we'll go through developmental stages, and so not to take the wind out of your
You
sail,
have taken
you
the
know.
win. So it's after the fact.
But I guess it's a big yes. We need to learn how to parent.
Yes, and as part of the process, we have to unlearn some of the patterns of parenting we learned from our predecessors.
Yeah.
For instance, the shouting.
I'm guilty, Pa.
Oh!
My son asked, why do you like shouting like that? Like, because you don't listen. I mean, it's like, if you don't listen, I'll shout. That one too, don't have to unlearn it.
Yes, you
But
have
does
to.
it get the results?
It does. The
Sometimes.
shouting gets the-
Temporarily.
temporarily, yeah. But it doesn't change behavior.
No.
It gets instant results, but it
Yes,
doesn't
and it could
change
even
behavior.
accentuate a bad behavior.
Yeah.
If you are not careful, it will get to a time you tell you, I know you are going to shout.
And the children of today too, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we really have to unlearn some of the patterns and relearn. And we must make a conscious effort at it. Unfortunately, there are countless books, there are programs like we are having that people can take serious look at and really learn to help them to parent.
To parent. So if you're a parent, I think it's about time you begin to invest in learning how to parent. You know, the thing about us Ghanaians, Africans, and I say this very reservedly, is that sometimes we are like, oh, these white people, the white people, this, white people that, white people's that. And there are times when even, you know, I as a parent or some of my friends have been accused of being too westernized in our approach to parenting.
I see.
But what do you think? What do you think of the gap between how the kids are parented outside of Africa and how kids are parented here?
Out there, some of them are extreme. Some to the point of being negligent, and sometimes the law will actually let you lose control over your own children, and they became something else. They become something else.
I'm actually talking about the positive.
Okay, so if they're positives, then yeah, whatever gives positive results, whether it's coming from Azerbaijan or wherever, we must take it and use it. Because look at us as a people. We are very religious, and yet we are unable to solve our basic problems. And some of them is out of these parenting. I can give a typical example, maybe a foreign one and then a local one. Let's take one of the most revered scientists or we've known, Albert Einstein. Or no, Thomas Edison. You know, in school, the teachers treated him badly to the extent that he had to drop out. So he had only 3 months of formal education. It was a mother who sowed positive thoughts, helped him to develop. And now, someone who was called adult or unable to reason well and to act appropriately in school becomes one of the greatest inventors we've ever known. We owe so much to Thomas Edison just because of the way he was raised by the mother at home.
Which of them, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but there's one of these great scientists who got a letter from school and the school said that they would not teach him because he was very dumb. And his mother never showed it to him and she taught him at school. And then later on he found the letter.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He's the one,
okay.
Thomas
yeah.
Edison.
Yeah. That story really got me.
Yes. So you can imagine the influence of parenting.
I see. Wow. Yeah, go on.
You see, when it comes to, you mentioned something I would touch, which is education. I guess our formal education is teaching us most of the things we won't need for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And all the things we would need, rather, are learned not in the classroom, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If you're a parent and you ever give birth to a child like me, I can feel your pain because I was a child who won't take anything unless I don't even know, unless you can give me some reason. Now you ask the question what the Westerners are doing right, and if any. You see, the human life has been studied and stripped from childhood till death. We understand the signs of human psychology, not entirely.
Yeah, not entirely,
but
of course.
At least there is enough foundational knowledge to understand that a child's development means something. You know what to expect when the child is 6 months, when the child is 2 years, when the child is 4 years, when the child is 6 years, when the child is 12, when he's 18, when he's 24, when he's 30. There are natural expectations of both physiological and psychological. Now, these are signs. And so when we say that the Westerners are, I get a bit some way, because I don't think it's a matter of race, and I never want to have a conversation.
It's not about race, it's about socialization, isn't it?
But that's the point I'm making, which is to say that the difference is application of knowledge. For lack of knowledge, my people perish. Perhaps the only scripture I found in the Bible, because it's a sense of lack of knowledge. If you really knew that a child at 6 months has been studied, at least with a big sample, and your child may not be entirely different, at least there are baselines. You know, their uniqueness will not take away from them the generalities of humanity. And so if you can learn that science, and I use that word science, because science is that which is, you can get results, whether it's in A country or B country. It's the science of it. And so if we will take time to learn what are the evolving science. There is a book, unfortunately, whoever you know it is with, I'm still waiting for the book. It's called Redirect. You know, Redirect is one of the best books I have ever read. You know, Redirect says that how do we grow? You know, and there is a whole chapter on parenting. Well, these are subjects people will tell me I don't like reading. And you get a lot of people saying that, and you're wondering, so how do you learn?
But people are not committed to learning.
And they're like, oh, but we learned all we needed in school. And I'm like, whoa. Was it pi r square, or was it the the dy dx?
I forgot
or the integrated science? Which one?
Yeah, which one?
You know, because in books people share their experiences. Research works are rarely shared in schools. They are shared in magazines and journals. And so these are evolving knowledge on the day-to-day basis. The point I'm making is this: education must start from the homes, and parents must be educators themselves. You know, and being an educator doesn't mean you need a BSc in management, school management or anything. But you need to learn the science of humanity. You know, we all need to learn what it is that a child feels. And thank God to Google now. You can find very credible sites, you know, that teaches you amazing things about the science of human development and the formation periods of life. And so, yes, some people are doing things right, and they are doing things based on science, whilst most of us are parenting and educating based on opinions.
Which is why I asked the question whether parenting should be learned. I think for a very long time, when it came to parenting, we valued obedience over fellowship. So the sign of good parenting was that I could give an order to my child and it would be instantly obeyed. As opposed to now, when you ask your child to do something and they fearlessly ask you to explain yourself. Yeah. You know, but the beauty is that in explaining yourself, you don't have to ask them to do it again because they understand why it must be done. Yeah. And so for me, I feel like the obedience kind of authoritative parenting is an easy way out, because this way of parenting that this new generation, you know, we're really trying to get into with all this emotional intelligence, it's not easy because your children are questioning your judgment. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes my daughter, I'll say something, she looks at me like, where did you get that idea from? And I'm thinking, when were you born?
It's not about the time.
Yeah, but the thing is, I have to justify my position, and in doing that, I'm teaching her the value of what I'm saying, so that when I'm not there, the value remains.
Exactly.
And it's tough.
You know, back home we play a lot. So sometimes when these kinds of questions come, then I would say, you are very lucky. If it was in my day, by this time, you'll be seeing stars already. Yeah.
Oh my God,
but I'll be quick to say that I don't think that this conversation should make people listening feel that we're training kids to be disrespectful.
Not at all.
Because you see, timidity is not
respect. It's not humility. Yes.
You know, the fact that a child grows up being timid doesn't mean that
they're humble.
They are humble. Usually people who are timid are very proud, you know, but the fact that
and almost hypocritical.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is how come sometimes we question our whole social structure and question people, the whole foundation on which our whole social system is built. But the question is, if we can have people who critically think and ask the hard questions, irrespective. You know, blind obedience is the worst of our bane. Because we all subject our pure thought to the power of leadership and to the power of authority. Respect authority by all means, but question them.
And if what they're saying is true, it will uphold.
By all means, because we're all rational. at least we can all assume to be rational. And even in the sense of our emotions, there is a place for thinking and brainstorming.
Yes, indeed.
You know, and that, I think, should be the basis of building a new culture where we think, where we ask questions, where no one says that do this because
I said so.
I said so. I respect you as my mother, but doing that doesn't...
I said that to my daughter once because I said so, and she was like, "Really, Mommy?" I mean, is this where we've reached in life?
Now, on the point of learning to parent, I think here the church or the religious bodies can do us a big favor.
Yeah.
Much as they organize prophetic encounters and what have you, they should set some time aside just for the purpose of helping parents to learn some of these things. We all admit that generally our society, people don't like reading.
Yeah.
Fair. But tomorrow is Sunday.
Not fair.
Tomorrow is Sunday. Almost 70% of society will end up in one church or the other.
Yeah.
If the leaders of these organizations could appreciate the importance of helping their members to learn some of these things, then they could find resource persons to help their parents to learn how to parent
which will
properly.
require that they themselves learn. And this is the fundamental problem that sometimes I have with the church and with religious bodies, is that there's such a disparity and such a divide between where the world is going and where the church is. And sometimes we do God a great disservice because God is, I mean, he's a thinking, creative, amazing God. He requires us to be thinking and creative. And sometimes religion holds us back. Which is very sad, especially in this country. So yes, I agree with you that our churches and our leaders should recognize that, you know, there are some things that have to be taught and that there's emotional intelligence. I mean, in marriage counseling, in parenting, in all these things, you know, we must demand a higher level of impartation, as it were, from our spiritual leaders, you know, and we must require that they know what they are talking about. I mean, the inspiration is good, the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, all of that is good, but bring it down to earth for us sometimes. And on top of that, can we see you living the life that you're preaching as well? I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but clearly I did.
Good, huh?
I'm going to take these important messages and then we'll be right back. This is Joy 99.7 FM. You're tuned into Home Affairs. I'm here with my guests, Yao and David. My name is Enima, sitting in for Edem. And we're talking about emotional intelligence, the practical side to emotional intelligence. We will be right back.
To everybody who believes there's no dream you can't achieve, you can have it when you want, and then sing this song. I love my life this way. Indomie, love it your way. Yes, go on and love it your way. Indomie, love it your way. Yes, I love my life this way. You are the master of your fate, with your heart and your mind full of grace. There's no mountain you can't climb when you sing this song. I love my life this way. Indomie, love it your way. Yes, go on and love it your way. Indomie, love it your way. Yes, we all love Indomie. Indomie instant noodles. Taste great.
Kwesi, put the chicken in the pan. Slowly.
Everyone told me cooking was for girls. My friends laughed, but my mom encouraged me. I watched her chop, slice, scoop, and stir.
Kwesi, use only the best ingredients. Have passion for details. Hold the Frytol bottle from the middle. Now pour.
Making delicious meals was so effortless for her. I always wanted to be a cook like her.
Chef Kwesi, order for 2 braised chicken with a side of fries.
Coming up. Every time I pick up a bottle of Frytol, I remember my mother and all that she taught me. Whenever she comes to eat at my restaurant, she smiles and says,
I'm proud of you.
As for the friends who laughed at me, they eat here all the time.
Frytol, making life memorable.
Welcome if you're just tuning in. This is Joy 99.7 FM and this is Home Affairs, your favorite Saturday morning show. You can join the conversation. Our WhatsApp line is 0244 340 437, 0244 340 437. And this morning we're talking about emotional intelligence and applying it to your life. But if you're hungry, you know what to do. Indomie Instant Noodles. Well, Indomie Instant Noodles is a complete, wholesome and delicious meal which is full of essential nutrients and is rich in calcium, proteins, carbohydrates and vitamins, so you can have it anytime and anywhere. Also, you can add your personal touch to your favorite Indomie meal by adding your choice of ingredients like vegetables, eggs, fish, chicken, meat. You can prepare Indomie the way you love. So go love it your way. For tasty Indomie recipes and other details, check out Indomie Ghana page on Facebook and Instagram. And when it comes to cooking, well, you know where to go. It's Frytol Vegetable Cooking Oil. It's made from the finest palm fruits around the world, including plantations in Ghana. And due to its plant heritage, Frytol is cholesterol-free. It's also fortified with vitamin A, which is very good for you. Your favorite Frytol is the only cooking oil in Ghana endorsed by the Ghana Medical Association. When it comes to cooking oil, you can never go wrong with Frytol. Frytol, make life memorable. Okay, now we're moving from parenting to love and relationships, and how emotional intelligence can apply and how it can make your relationship better. We're going to be talking to Mr. James Kwesi Addison. He's an EQ coach and a social emotional development specialist. And he's going to pretty much tell us how to apply emotional intelligence to love. Good morning, Mr. Addison. Hello? Hello? Okay, looks like we lost Mr. Addison. We'll come back to him as soon as he comes back, but I'm going to come into the studio now. Okay, so yeah, Dave, okay, I'm going to throw the question and then Mr. Addison. Okay, Mr. Addison, hello, good morning. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
Awesome. I'm doing great. So we're talking about emotional intelligence again. But this morning we wanted you to briefly tell us how and why it's important and how emotional intelligence factors in when it comes to love and relationships.
Good. Thank you very much once again. And my regard to the other expert in the studio. It's unfortunate I've not been able to join you once again because I'm involved in a nationwide training with the Susu Collectors Association of Ghana and their members currently in the Eastern region. Now, emotional intelligence, I want to put across that is something that is learnable. These skills are teachable. It's something that we can easily learn. Now, when it comes to relationship, I want to start with respect to all other religions. I want to quote something from the Bible. That is in Genesis 2:24. It says, "For this reason, a man shall leave the parent and be joined with a wife, and they shall become one. Therefore, what God has put together, no man should put asunder." Now, I ask myself and other people that I normally coach, have you seen people that have married for 25 years and they become one in physical? No. Now, God was talking about a very critical emotional intelligence skills that is named empathy. Now, empathy is the basis for every relationship. That leads to love. That leads to belonging. That leads to understanding. Now, how is empathy built or learned in relationship. Now, normally people will give you the general approach that put yourself in that person's shoes. Now, the question is, how do you put yourself in my shoe? I may be wearing 32. You may be wearing 45. So the issue is that there are ABCs that build empathy, that leads to love. And I want to quickly run through some of the building blocks. Now, one of the very good things that underpins empathy is what we call active listening. Active listening. Now, when somebody is in a situation and you'll be able to demonstrate love, the very first thing that you have to do is to practice active listening. You pause and give the person full attention. Now, you make soft, natural eye contact. Sometimes you need to lean forward. Now, you need to add a warm smile and a nod of the head and provide minimal encouragements. Now, you must also ask clear, open questions that will draw out the person's point of view and feelings. By this, I mean you ask excavating questions. These are questions that helps you to dig for the truth of the matter. They help you uncover the other person's inner emotions by requiring that person by providing more information, and that will enable you to make an informed response. You should also put on hold emotions. Now, you have to use your self-awareness to gauge your own mounting irritation, contain your impulse, and act sensibly in the face of provocation. Now, what you have to do here is to calm down, take a deep breath, because that person is through a particular situation, and the only way you can show love is to calm down, because at that point in time, your rational brain has been hijacked by the emotional brain, and within the split of a second, you may not be able to think rationally. Now, the other thing that will really promote love is for you to suspend judgment and develop attitude of curiosity. Now, emotional intelligence, you need to continue to ask why, until you've gotten a data that will help you to make an informed decision. Now, you also show love by looking for greatness in other people, your partner, your couple, and support it by providing a feedback to that person every opportunity that you have. Now, you also need to validate emotions of people to show love. Now, when you validate emotions, you are simply trying to let the person know that you understand what he is going through. This stems from the basis that one of the characteristics of emotions is that all emotions are okay. Now, they are all okay because they have causes, they have reasons, they are logic. Now, I must be quick to add that not all behaviors are okay. So feelings are different from behaviors. Now, when somebody, a loved one, in a relationship is exhibiting a particular emotion, we need to demonstrate that we understand them. For instance, when we take maybe your wife or in a relationship, something has happened and the person is crying. Maybe the person has lost a dear one, and you bump into the room and the wife or the husband is crying. What you have to do is not just to say, are you the only person that have lost a dear one? No, you are not validating. Now, what you have to do is to let the person know that you understand how it feels when people lose their dear ones. By saying, you know something, I understand this thing. I know you are frustrated. I know you are at the very low point of your life now, but you know this is not the end of the world. Now, this person gets to know that you really appreciate and understand. In that instance, the relationship between you becomes more of collaborative effort than the adversary. Now, let me also be quick to add that in relationship, you will be able to demonstrate love when you are able to know what we call the 3 secrets of managing yourself and regulating your emotions. Quickly, this is what I call the 3 secrets. Now, the very first aspect of that is to know your triggers to your emotional world. Now, what makes you happy? What makes you sad? What makes you frustrated? If you know these things, now when they come, you are able to manage them for good. you must also be able to demonstrate or be aware of how these emotions manifest in you. So that when you are getting angry, what are the physiological changes that comes up? Now, the beauty is that when you are able to identify these two areas, you will be able to manage it for good. Now, but the last but not the least, to me, when time permits, I will continue, is that there is the need for us to do what I call modeling. Modeling, to show love, to show empathy. For your relationship to be very solid, there's what we call processing is everything in emotions. Now, one of the effective ways of building empathy or love is to model it. Nothing beats what I call a kind family together. When you want your relationship to show you kindness, compassionate, that love, understanding, you should be in a position to do that. Emotions are reciprocal, all other things being equal. When you show people kindness, you receive kindness. Now, these things are very, very real in building a very good relationship. Now, we must also not lose the fact of what I termed, or what emotional coaches term, social awareness. Having a strong social awareness is very important in relationship. This is the ability to comprehend and appropriately react to both broad problems of society and intrapersonal struggles. Now, we are coming from different backgrounds. Your wife, your colleagues may be coming from different backgrounds, but we are all in one country. We are all on the same planet. Now, unity in diversity. You must appreciate their values, know their norms, understand their aspirations and beliefs, their assumptions and expectations. Becoming aware of your social environment is very vital in maintaining good relationships. Why? For even teaches us when, where, and how to begin and end in a variety of interaction. For instance, make sure that you have the full attention of people before you start your presentation. Now, when people are coming from different backgrounds and you validate their social issues, their culture, you cease to understand them. They open up every relationship and things turn out to be very good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Addison. I really wish that you could have been here with us. But you've given us so much. And that was Mr. James Addison. He's an EQ coach and social emotional development specialist. Now, he talks about empathy. He talked about active listening, about validation in relationships. He said that there are 3 secrets of managing yourself. Know your triggers. What makes you happy? What makes you sad? What frustrates you? Be aware of how these emotions manifest. He also talks about modeling, showing love, showing empathy, and he also said that processing is everything. He talked about social awareness, which he said is the ability to comprehend and react to broad social issues, as well as in the intrapersonal struggle of whoever you're with or whoever you're relating to. It seems like a lot of hard work, doesn't it, guys? it seems like it's hard work. I'm going to just take a few messages and then we can come back to the studio discussion. So Keboachi says, I agree in explaining things to children and fellowshipping with children, but children must learn to obey before they understand. Yes, as long as they do understand. That's our focus this morning is on the understanding. Parents must use discretion in allowing kids to choose what to obey. Some clever kids will reduce wise decisions to absurdity to suit themselves. If you see how kids in the UK will reduce wise correction to absurdity, you'll see that children here are a mess. Thank you for that, Keboachi. Good morning, Home Affairs. Princess Believe Jabba, happy birthday. Thank you for listening. We hope that you have a wonderful day. Samson says, my dad never beat or scolded us. Interestingly enough, we didn't become vagabonds or social delinquents. May his soul rest in perfect peace. This one says, thank you for this topic. I don't really know if I have forgiven my parents and those I found myself with growing up. I still think and I reflect on the horrible treatment they gave me, especially my mother herself. Fortunately, unfortunately, I left her early in my teens and didn't get better. I didn't get any better with those I had to live with going forward. It's a whole lot, but I'm learning this morning that I have to forgive them and unlearn some of the traits they made me have due to their harsh treatment. I can say I'm very loving and caring, but I shout when I'm angry, and it seems I don't get loved back from those I show so much love to and for. I am grateful for this topic. She says, good morning to David and your adorable children. Thank you so much for that. And yes, focus on forgiveness and making yourself into the best you that you can possibly be. Can I just say at this point that in discussing all of this, there's something that I don't want to leave out. There are lots of things in our lives that we can rationalize and think through, but there are some hurts and there's some pain that we cannot rationalize and think through. I don't know what you believe, but what has worked for me is I take my pain to God. And there are things in my life that he has healed that I couldn't think through and that I couldn't work through. So if you get to the point where it's all a bit too much, go to the one who created you and tell him, you know what, I'm broken. I need you to fix me. And he will fix you. That much I can guarantee, because believe you me, I was so broken and I am so fixed this morning. It's unbelievable. Amen. Emotional intelligence, the first step to maturity and being wise. The responsibility is on us to develop this part of our lives. Nobody can do it for you except you. I understood my dad many years ago. Your life is your own responsibility, and one should stop blaming their parents for the wrong choices they made. Are you too saying you will do same or worse? Choose to be better for yourself. This one says, good morning, Enima, and I miss you, Edem. Yes, Edem, we all miss you, especially my alarm at 5 o'clock in the morning. Good morning. He says he's recording just in case others want a playback. Cosby says, this is a very important subject you have embarked upon. Despite one's qualifications, without elements of emotional intelligence, a leader is not complete or whole. Most leaders of recent times, being an MD or CEO, lack such qualities, and this reflects in their poor leadership. An MD who has been exposed to emotional intelligence doesn't talk recklessly to his employees and doesn't seek power as an end to itself, but a means to an end, or seeking power for personal. So they're not seeking power for personal immediate gratifications. Thank you so much to all of you who messaged in. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to read some of your messages. It's 7:24, so we have about 6 minutes until the end of the show. So I'm gonna give this question to David and Yao. Your thoughts, because if I start asking specific questions, we'll have problems with the time. But your thoughts on love, relationships, and how emotional intelligence really factors in when it comes to love relationships, and in your case, David, with marriage as well.
Okay. I go. All right. Part of our lives involves relationships. We can't do without it. It's part of the constructs of life that make us feel normal or have a well-being. So, but it comes with it all manner of issues. First of all, you have to identify the objectives for any particular relationship. So let's take marriage, for instance. Two coming together as one. What is the objective? And I must submit that in addition to the procreation, meeting the expectations of society and family and what have you, one of the most important reasons is fellowship. So you interact to make each other happy and fulfilled. With that in mind, it means that each person must seek the other's interests. So mutually, you must seek each other's interest. That means you must eschew selfishness. Human beings, as we are, often we tend to want our needs and our needs alone be satisfied almost all the time without looking at how our partner's needs are being met also. So we must make a conscious effort to want to identify or align with our partner's needs and make the effort to fulfill them. And that will also involve a lot of communication because I need to know from first hand what your needs are. And research has given us what we call love languages.
Yeah, the 5 love languages.
5 love languages have been identified. Words of affirmation, giving of service, or
acts of service.
Gifts, acts of service, sorry. Giving of gifts, spending quality time, and then physical touch. If you're able to observe, and let me say, these are not in discrete modes, so you could have overlaps. One person can have multiple love languages. But generally, as human beings, all these things are beneficial to all of us. So we must, even if we don't know the love language of our partner, let's give all.
Okay.
And I believe it will enhance our relationships and our love lives a lot.
Okay. Thank you, David. Yeah,
right,
in 1 minute.
1 minute.
1 metric imperial minute.
So, I've said here before that the whole goal of emotional intelligence is that we are respectful. I guess the baseline of any relationship to bond is a certain respect and love. The emotional feelings or the emotional ranges of the other party needs to be respected. But beyond the respect is engagement, which is a conversation, active engagement, which then leads to the assurance. But I would say this in the next 30 seconds. For whatever relationship it is, and more of a home relationship, you know, sometimes people want to give away the responsibility of their own emotion to the other party. I think self-awareness is the baseline, which I've said here. Sometimes all the emotions you're going through, you're not even aware of it, you know, and so it becomes difficult for the other party to deal with, or for you to open up to engage. And so the first thing I'll say is self-awareness, which then we must independently, so as individuals in a relationship, be aware of your own emotions. Take control of your own emotions. Then manage those emotions. Then, which we talked about social awareness, which is empathy or a certain mutual goal to achieve, so you're both aware. Then the final thing is relationship management. Manage that relationship. The butterflies will be there as long as you can manage issues of conflict management. How do you manage conflict? Can you take the emotions out and go through the conflict?
Issues, yeah.
Can you give each other hope and be a sense of inspiration and motivation for the next person when they are down? Can you find humor together, even in the pain? And these are matters of managing the relationship. And so emotions may bring us together, but it's the emotional intelligence that will help us stay together. And so I may be emotionally attracted to you, but I need to be able to get to a place where we can manage each other in the times when the emotions are winding. And it means you must manage yours, I must manage mine. We must become socially aware, and then together with empathy, you know, we take each day at a time, how we influence each other, how we coach and affect each other's behavior, how we manage conflict and things we disagree with, and how do we inspire each other. And so as we build inspiration as a core element in engaging with people, I think there's nothing more loving than looking at your partner inspire you. You look at them and you feel inspired. I guess that's the home of when God says that, and it was good that I did this.
Oh, that's another line from the Bible. You.
I guess we all must come to a place where we must look at the other person.
Yes.
It was good.
It was
with them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think just to add to that, another important thing is know what to expect. Know what to expect from God. Know what to expect of yourself, and know what to expect of your partner. You can't go into a relationship expecting that your partner will be your everything. They cannot. You have a responsibility to take care of yourself first, so that you can take care of other people, and you also expect that other people will take care of themselves first before before they take care of you. So have a strong sense of personal responsibility. Thank you so much for joining us here on Home Affairs this morning. Thank you for choosing Joy FM. It's 99.7 FM. It's 7:31. I leave you with this one thing. The Bible says that wisdom is the principal thing. So get wisdom. And in all you're getting, get understanding. I also said this last week that the best and the most important relationship you'll ever have, apart from your relationship with God, is your relationship with yourself. So get to know yourself and let's work on being emotionally intelligent. My name is Enima Enimado. I'd like to say a very big thank you to Seth, the whole technical team, Dennis on social media, and my beautiful, amazing producer, friend, Daniela. Thank you so much for your support. And maybe I'll be back next week. Maybe Edem will be back next week. Watch this space. This is Home Affairs. I'm leaving you with a song by Tasha Cobbs, and this is Gracefully Broken.